So, I wanted to make a video on why I think Toedscruel is actually kind of viable in the current meta of Regulation D. So, Toedscruel isn't a Pokemon you see very often, like in VGC at all. It's even really niche in singles. And that's mostly because Toedscruel is primarily a support Pokemon with a ability that really impacts its support. It makes status moves go last in the priority bracket, which isn't great if you want to spore a enemy player. It makes you really slow, and the only niche usage for it so far is in singles as a way to spore Goldango. So the set that I'm running, I can't take much credit for it. Shaman from the Mindsy Discord really helped me out with this build. Like, most of the credit and ideas go straight to them. They helped me so much with the calcs. So I have Life Orb, high special attack, Toedscruel, which is very unusual as Toedscruel is usually a support Pokemon. Now, I have a reason for this. Now, the biggest one is Ursaluna. My team was struggling a lot with Ursaluna, and Leaf Storm is calced to guaranteed one-hit KO a Ursaluna with not much put into defense because from my knowledge, which isn't the most extensive, most Ursalunas invest a lot in HP and attack, which makes sense. Um, yeah. So I don't know how accurate these builds for the other Pokemon are, since I got most of them from Smogon. I'm assuming they're at least fairly accurate, or at least give a good general idea. So essentially, Toedscruel is a very good Ursaluna counter. Leaf Storm can one-hit KO Ursaluna, and you still have the option to Spore. Even though Spore will move last, it is still a very valuable component and aspect to the team. But just having a Pokemon that is a counter to Ursaluna isn't worth it. You don't want to have a Pokemon with a single usage on your team. So I've actually ran the calcs for a few other Pokemon that it goes really well into. Heatran is another Pokemon I was struggling with. So Heatran with Assault Vest is a 50% chance to one-hit KO with Earth Power. This is before Terra, of course. It is. I've also. No, it wasn't me. Shaman helped me calc this Toedscruel to survive a. It wasn't. It was. What was the move? It wasn't Heat Wave. Magma Storm. So with this current calc, Toedscruel can survive a Magma Storm from Heatran. I don't know how common Magma Storm is ran, but it is still good to know. So even with the 50% chance to one-hit KO, that is with a Assault Vest. If you were to move the Assault Vest for, let's say, Leftovers, which is also really common on Heatran, it is a guaranteed one-hit KO. Now again, this is before Terra. Heatran can always Terra out of this weakness. That is very possible. It is then kind of hard to deal with Heatran. It is still very much worth considering that Earth Power is very strong into Heatran and Ursaluna, but it's also really good into Urshifu. You see, if we go back over here, we can see that Toedscruel's speed stat is pretty high. Now, I haven't invested much in speed just because it works better in defense and special defense for me, just so it can survive hits. But it's still worth considering. If you want to invest more into the speed stat for your Toedscruel, you can very easily outspeed Urshifu that haven't invested much. Like in this set that I found, my Toedscruel would actually outspeed here. So Toedscruel can one-hit KO Urshifu with Leaf Storm. Now, as you can see, Surging Strikes is also a one-hit KO back, but what I'm running on my Toedscruel is Terra Water. Now, if I do Terra Water, that actually allows me to survive any hit from this specific build of Urshifu Rapid Strike. Now, I believe if I swap to Life Orb, yeah, Life Orb does one-hit KO with Close Combat, but there's a few different options you have with your Terra. Water is what I have found works best for me, primarily because it allows me to resist a lot of Heatran's attacks. It allows me to pair well. It's not so good for Ursaluna, but it works really well for Heatran's attacks and Urshifu's attacks. Now, the reason I brought up Life Orb, it's not very common right now, but it was recently used in a regional tournament and performed really well, so I just thought it would be worth mentioning. But it isn't too common from my knowledge. It may be on the rise. A few other options you have instead of Terra Water is Terra Ghost. Now, personally, I didn't go for Terra Ghost specifically because there's a lot of ghost types on my team. If you go over here, I have Goldango and Fluttermane, and both the Tornadus and Chien-Pao are Terra Ghost. I didn't want to have a team too heavily focused on the ghost typing. That would leave me with a huge weakness. But Terra Ghost actually pairs really well into the Ursaluna because with the Terra Ghost, you can survive a Facade, and if you don't go Terra Ghost, you can survive an Earthquake. That works really well. If we go back to the Urshifu Rapid Strike, you can survive the Close Combat. I mean, you could with the Terra Water, unless they were Life Orb, or I'm assuming Choice Band would also do that. But I haven't seen many Urshifu run Choice Band. A lot of them run Choice Scarf, from my knowledge. So overall, I do think this is fairly valuable. There's just a lot of utility you can use. There's so many different options, so many different things. I think Toedscool is definitely underutilized. I mean, sure, these are only 3 Pokemon, but I'm sure there's so many more usages that I haven't found. There's definitely so much more potential that can be gotten out of Toedscool that I haven't because I'm not great at VGC. I've been trying to get into it, been trying to improve my skills. I haven't been using Toedscool to its fullest potential. I think it has great potential, and it has a huge surprise factor because not many people are expecting a offensive Toedscool. A lot of times when I've ran with Toedscool, I immediately get taunted because a lot of them are expecting the Spore. It's a huge surprise factor that can really throw people off guard unless you're playing in open team sheets, which then they could see that you're running a bit more offensively. But still, just having a option that many people haven't thought about or even calced for is huge. Like, most people wouldn't think that the Toedscool would take out the Ursaluna in one hit. It is something that I would really like to see pick up in usage, at least a little bit, in a niche circumstance. Now, I don't know how useful this will be when the DLC regulations drop. I don't know if this will become better or worse. It really depends on how the new Pokemon that release are performed, and like if their matchup pairs well with Toedscool. I still think this is something very much worth considering, and I hope you enjoyed. This is the first thing in the style of content that I've done. I find VGC incredibly interesting, and I would love to do more things like this, and hopefully I can actually improve at the game so I get a bit more knowledgeable when I do this style of thing. But yeah, thank you. Have a nice day.